Hey everybody. All right, so we're going to continue our videos on Illustrator, and I'm going to break this down into a couple of videos. The first one here is going to be about getting a color palette or a color scheme into your Illustrator file, and then how to build some more complex designs or images, I guess. Because the next thing after that is going to be to make a pattern using something that you've created that is organic, like an animal or a plant or a mineral. I'm going to show you the color palette thing and then also how to draw a bird. Okay, so let's start with the color palette. I'm gonna share my screen. I feel like I say the same things at the beginning of every video. Okay, so color is something that you can take many classes on, and we are really not going to get too much into the idea of color theory here, but we are going to talk about the fact that you can import a color palette into Illustrator, and you can do that a couple of ways. So the first way that I'm going to show you is by actually finding a color palette online that you'd like to work with and bringing that into Illustrator. Now you can find a color palette or color scheme in a lot of different places online. So I just typed in color scheme and found a bunch of different websites that would generate color schemes for me. These are color schemes that designers have predetermined look good together. Okay, there's a whole theory behind it, and you can really go into depth if you are excited about that. Then you should continue to take art classes. This is a website I found called Coolors. I can put this link in Moodle for you. And it allows me to just, every time I hit the space bar, it produces a new set of colors. What we are going to be looking for our purposes is a set of 5 colors like this generator is producing. And I'm just going to keep flipping through until I find something that I'm excited to work with, like this one. I think this looks cool. Now on this site, I can actually just go ahead and export this color palette. Right here, there's an export button. And I'm going to choose image. And I'm going to give it a title. We're going to call this palette, palette. Well, this is like the 7th palette that I've done from this website in the last couple days. Side note, I've made this video several times and keep getting interrupted by roofers or somebody emailing me or somebody calling me. So hopefully make it through this one. So I'm going to go ahead and export that. And it's just going to pop right down here into my downloads. And I need to make sure that I know where it's going. So I'm going to go into my Finder window, and I'm going to take it out of my downloads, and I'm going to plop it into my Art in the Computer file. Now, another way that you could get a color palette is there are different different artists use various color palettes. So for instance, the director Wes Anderson, who directed Rushmore, The Royal Tenenbaums, Life Aquatic, Fantastic Mr. Fox, all really good movies that you should totally check out. He's really well known for creating or working with specific color palettes. So I did a search for Wes Anderson color palettes, and here's another color palette generator. And so if I scroll through here, you can see, here's the color palette for Life Aquatic, and there's a screenshot from Life Aquatic, and you can see how that is, clearly the color palette he's working with. And what I can do is I can actually just take a screenshot of this. On the Mac, I can just click, or on my keyboard, hold Shift, Command, and 4 at the same time, and it gives me this crosshairs. And I can then just take a screenshot of those 5 colors. And I don't need the full wide band. Really, all I'm looking for is a sample here. And you could do that for, you know, any other website that you might come across that has color palettes listed. Again, we're looking for 5 different colors. And I know that my screenshots just plop onto my desktop. So again, I'd want to go into my Finder and put that into the appropriate file folder so that I know where to find it when I get into Illustrator. That being said, let's go over to Illustrator here and close your eyes for a sec, because I realized I didn't close the last thing I was doing. And it's nothing weird. It's just you'll get a preview of what we're doing. So just ignore this for now. Ignore what I'm doing. This is a preview of the bird that we're gonna draw. Okay, and I'm gonna get rid of this because I'm gonna show you how to make that. Okay. I'm gonna zoom out. And what I have here is an artboard that is letter sized. So remember, if you want to make a new document, you're going to go to File, New, give it a title. This is just going to be Playing with Colors. So maybe just title this Playing with Colors. And I want you to make this one letter sized. So from this drop-down window, choose letter, and that's 8.5 by 11. That's the standard like printer paper size. Doesn't matter if it's landscape or portrait. Say okay. Okay, now I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna grab that palette that I downloaded and I'm gonna place it into my artboard. So this is like when in the poetry broadsides, we were placing images to be traced. We're ultimately not gonna trace this. We're really just using this as resource material. So I'm gonna come in here and that was palette 7. You'll notice that it's a PNG. That's fine. Illustrator can handle a PNG. That's really just a web file. So I'm going to go ahead and place it. And remember, this is just a thumbnail. And I know from experience that once I click, this is going to be really giant. So don't fret, because I can then use my selection tool and holding the Shift key, I can scale that down so that it's a more reasonable size to work with. That's good. I'm going to place it outside of my artboard here because I'm not actually using it for anything other than to source out these colors. So again, I don't need to trace it. I don't need to expand it. It just is as it is there. Now, what I want to do is I want to go to my swatches palette. And if that's not open, you can go to Window and choose Swatches here, and it'll show up. And I want to create a new color group. I can do this with this little file folder symbol here. I'm going to click on that. And let's title this Bird Palette, because I'm going to draw a bird. You don't have to draw a bird ultimately. You might want to for the practice of it tonight or tomorrow. Ultimately, you're going to choose whatever it is that you want to draw. So you might be drawing a cactus. So you might make this your cactus palette. I don't know. And say okay. And you'll notice that now there's a new folder here, and it has a little white square in it. I don't need that white square. I'm going to just go ahead and throw that away. It had a white square on there because I had the white selected when I made that new folder. Not a big deal. And from here, I'm going to systematically go through and suck up the color from each of these to make a new swatch. To do that, I'm going to use the eyedropper tool. And I'm going to come over and I'm just going to start on the left and I'm going to suck up that color. And you can see that it now appears as my fill color. I'm now just going to drag that into this folder. And you see it shows up next to the folder, indicating that it's in that folder. I'm going to repeat here and get that tan color into the folder. Get this aquamarine color into the folder. This yellow color into the folder. And this orangey color. Whoops, I don't need to drag. Into the folder. So now I have this same color palette all set up as a color group in my swatches. Excuse me. Now this thing's purpose has been served. I could delete it if I want. I kind of like seeing it there though, so I'm just gonna leave it there. And the same thing could be done with that screenshot that I took. You can also find color palettes here in the swatch libraries menu. If I click on this, there are a bunch of options that I can choose from. So if I go to art history and I choose pop art, a new palette opens up here. And these are all color schemes that the designers of Illustrator have decided have to do with pop art and are colors that work well together. Again, we're looking for a set of 5. So in this pop art section, this one would really be the one that you'd want to use. And if I click on that, you'll see it automatically populates over here in my main swatches palette. I don't really need that right now because I'm happy with this set of colors that I grabbed. So I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of that. But this is another resource for finding a color palette to work with. So just to reiterate, you don't have to get one from the internet. You can just get it right in Illustrator, but that's an option that I think is cool. So now that I've got my color swatches all set up, I'm going to show you how to draw a bird. We're going to draw a bird using the shape tools that we've already used. We're also going to use the pen tool, and we're going to use the width tool, which is something new. The bird is going to be made up of, I don't know, something like 7 shapes. We're going to start by making the body. To do that, I'm going to come over here to my shape tools and I'm going to choose the ellipse tool. I want the fill of the body of the bird to be one of these colors. It's already on this orangey color, so that's cool. We'll go with that. And I'm going to draw an oval standing upright. Make sure that it doesn't have a stroke. So if there's any color showing up here, make sure that you choose the white with a red slash through it, indicating no stroke. Next, I want to start to manipulate this shape a little bit more. You can imagine that creating things in Illustrator without being able to manipulate the shapes would be really frustrating. So we're going to manipulate this shape. We're going to come to the pen tool, hold down on it, and I want you to choose the anchor point tool. From here, you're going to click on the anchor point tool, or with the anchor point tool on that bottom anchor, and you're going to see that the shape changes. Next, I want to scooch this point of my weird egg shape over here. And to do that, I'm going to come over here to the direct selection tool, and this anchor I'm going to click on, and then I also want to click holding the shift key on this left hand anchor. So these two anchors are now chosen. Then I'm going to come up here to my top menu, and I'm going to choose this horizontal align left and watch what happens. Now these two anchors are aligned. I'm going to grab on to this anchor point, the pointy anchor point, and I'm going to pull down on it just to make my bird shape a little bit longer. And I might want to give the belly of my bird a little bit more fullness. To do that, I've grabbed onto this handle, and I can adjust the curve of that belly. Looks pretty good. Now I'm going to make the head of the bird. I'll use the ellipse tool, and I'm going to make a perfect circle by holding the shift key down as I click and drag. That looks about right. I'm going to use the selection tool to move the head into place. And I want the head to be aligned to the left. So notice how when I get close over there, well, now it's not, that green line shows up. That's letting me know that it is aligned on the left. I could also, if it was over here, I could select both shapes, and I did that by holding the shift key. And again, I could use this horizontal align left button. Starting to look more bird-like, right? I want to give it a neck over here, and I want to give it a little bit of a throat over here so that it's a little bit more of a singular shape. I'm going to do that by adding, for the neck, simply a rectangle. And I'm going to start that rectangle on the left-hand anchor of the head. And that really just fills in that space for me. And I can click out here to unhighlight it so that I can see the whole thing. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit to work on the throat. And this is going to be a little bit trickier. For the throat area, I'm going to use the pen tool, and I'm going to create a shape that's going to kind of curve along between the head and the body. I'm going to again start on an anchor point, the right-hand anchor. I'm going to click once, and then before I click, when I click again, I'm going to click and drag, and that's going to allow me to curve this line. And it's not perfect yet, but we can adjust it. And remember, when you're using the pen tool, you always need to complete the shape. So I'll put another point here, and then I'm going to bring my pointer back to the beginning and close that shape. Now I can use the direct selection tool to grab onto my anchors and adjust those to create a more swooping slope. I can also play with the handles and swoop that out a little bit more. And this is the kind of thing that I would probably spend 20 minutes trying to get the exact perfect swoop. You work on it as long as it takes you to get a satisfactory swoop. After I've done that, I'm going to click out in the white space and take a look at it, and that's okay. That'll work for me. Next up, we're going to create a wing that's going to go right in here. And the wing is really just going to be the same shape as the body, but it's going to be a little bit smaller, and it's going to be a different color. So I'm going to use the selection tool, and I'm going to click on the wing, and I'm going to copy and paste it. And I'm going to use my keyboard shortcuts, which are Command C, Command V. to copy and paste. And I'm going to change the color. Remember that when you've got a shape selected, you can change the color simply by coming over here to your swatches. And because we're working with this color scheme, you're going to choose one of these 5 colors. I guess I want that. Okay. Then I want to scale this down. So you want to hold the shift key as you're on the corner and scale that down to keep its proportions. Now I can move this over on top of the body and position it so that the edge of the wing is lined up with the edge of the body. Next up, I'm going to create a tail, and the tail is going to go right here, and it's also going to come from the basic shape of the body. So I'm going to select the body, I'm going to copy and paste it, scooch it over so I can see it. I'm going to give it its own color. Maybe it'll be this chartreuse color. And now I actually want to squish this, so do not hold the shift key. Just going to squish that, maybe squish it a little bit more, and move it into position. Again, lining up the edge of the tail with the edge of the body and the wing. Now, this looks good, but I want that tail to be underneath the wing. So I need to take this object and send it back. I need to send it back behind the wing. So make sure you've got it selected with your selection tool and come up here to Object, Arrange, Send Backward. You should only have to press that once because it was really just one step above the wing. And that looks pretty good, although it looks like it needs some repositioning. And that's the cool thing about Illustrator, because everything is a separate entity, it's really easy to make these adjustments. Next up, I want to make an eye and a beak. The eye is just going to be a round circle, so I can take the head and I can copy and paste that. And again, I can change the color. Now I want to make sure that I'm using all 5 of these colors, so I'm going to make the eye, this greenish tan color. And then I'm going to scale that down, holding the shift key so that it maintains its perfect circle, and move that into approximate eye position. And to draw the beak, I'm going to use the pen tool, and I'm basically just going to draw a triangle. Start with a single point, click, 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 and close that shape. Come back up to the selection tool, and right now it kind of looks like more like a party hat than a beak, because the hat is actually, well, the beak is on top of the head. So I want to send that object back, and I'm going to send it all the way to the back because I don't know how many steps ago the head was. So if I just send it to back, then I know that it's going to be behind the head. And see how now there's a slight, you can see this like curve of the head over the edge of the triangle that is the beak. And that's really starting to look pretty bird-like. I guess I do want to change the color of the beak. We'll give it this color. And I'm going to zoom out. Well, there we go. Now I'm going to rotate this whole shebang. Using the selection tool, I'm going to draw a box around the bird to select all of the bird parts. And I'm going to come up here to Object, Transform, Rotate. Here, I want you to type in what's already there, but type in -45 and say okay. And there we have our little birdie bird. Except that he's missing he's missing a leg. So let's give him a leg. Again, I'm gonna zoom in just a bit here. I also need to make this a little bit bigger. Okay, that's satisfying. All right, to make the leg, again, we're gonna use the pen tool, but we're gonna use it in a way that we haven't used it before. Get the pen tool. You're gonna start drawing the leg in the body of the bird. Click once, and then hold the shift key as you move the mouse. This is gonna make it so that you can only draw a line in a 45-degree angle, or at right angles, I guess. I'm gonna click to put an anchor point here. I'm still holding the shift key, and I'm gonna bring my second line down here and click. Now, it's wanting to create a shape, but what I really want is for it to create a path that is just along those lines that I drew. So I need to get rid of this spider web thing that's attached to me, and I can do that by holding the Command key and clicking outside of my shape. Now, this is an incomplete shape. It's really just a path. So the path is over here, and because I abandoned my spider web, it's an incomplete shape. What I need to do is I need to get rid of the fill color and give it only a stroke color so that it comes back to being just a line. I'll come up here to my top menu, and I'm going to click on the stroke color. Again, coming down to my color palette. And what color haven't I used? I guess I've used all the colors. So we'll make the leg the same color as the beak. And I want to get rid of the fill color. Remember, that is the white with the red slash. Oh, I didn't have it chosen. That's why nothing changed. Okay, with the selection tool, make sure you've got that path chosen. And now repeat what I just said. Choose that beak color and get rid of the fill color. Now it's really, really skinny, so I need to up that stroke weight. Maybe make it like 8. And that's, it's getting there, but it could be better. So let's make it better. Again, I'm going to click on my path with the selection tool, and I'm going to come over here to this new tool called the width tool. Click on that, and now when I bring my cursor over this first anchor, I get a little plus mark, and I can click and drag, and it will widen that path at one end. I want to do the same thing at the bird's knee. I want to come in here, and when I get that little squiggly line, because this is actually where this is in the middle of the path, I can grab onto that, and I can make the knee a little bit wider. So far, so good. That's looking a lot more leg-like. And the last step there, because I used some fancy stuff, I want to do something to the object called expand appearance. This just takes the fancy work that I just did with the width tool and turns that into a regular shape. And I'm going to do the same sort of thing to make a little foot here. Using the pen tool, I'm going to start my drawing over here, come up to my leg, and then out here. And again, because I've got a path that isn't a complete shape, I want to hit the Command key and click to release the spider web. And use your selection tool to select that path. Change the stroke color to the same as the leg and get rid of the fill color. Again, it's very skinny, so I'm gonna up my stroke. Yeah, 6 looks good. And once again, I'm gonna come down here to the width tool, and I'm gonna make the birds, oh, that's too much, toes a little bit more tapered by widening them at the intersection. Once again, making sure that the toes are selected, I'll come to Object and expand appearance to make that into just a regular shape. And voila, voila, you have made yourself a bird. The next thing, oh, I noticed one thing that I didn't do, and that is this leg looks a little bit awkward on top of the body. So I'm gonna take that shape and I'm gonna arrange and I'm gonna send that to the back. Yeah, that looks better. All right, after you've done this, and I would do it just like as practice for playing with the tools, because the more you do this, the more comfortable you're gonna be at playing with the shapes and altering the shapes and manipulating them the way that you want to manipulate them. But after you do this, select the whole shebang and come up to Object, Group. This is just connecting all of those shapes together so that when you have the selection tool chosen and you just grab onto it, you can move it. They're not merged per se, they're just tacked together. And with the whole thing selected, I want you to copy and paste so you have a second bird. And I want you to change the colors of your copied bird. Sorry, this guy was falling off the page. Okay. To do that, switch from the selection tool to the direct selection tool, which is going to allow you to choose these individual shapes. And again, once you have it highlighted, all you have to do to change the color is come into your color palette and click. Things are going to get a little bit tricky when you've got these 4 shapes making up the bulk of the bird. So remember, if you hold the Shift key, you can choose multiple things at a time so that you can swiftly change the color of all of them at once. The same thing is going to happen with your leg and your foot because those are 2 separate shapes. So choose both of those and then choose your new color. And I guess the eye, what color should the eye be? I guess the eye can be that color. And now we've got 2 birds made up of the same color palette, so they look really good together, and yet they are offering some variety because they're a little bit different. Stop sharing my screen. All right, so that's it for this little video. I'm gonna do another little video on making flowers because it's fun, and it gives you the opportunity to practice making another shape out of other shapes. And I've got a couple other tricks up my sleeve on manipulating shapes. But make the bird just to give yourself the practice of doing it. And then again, thinking ahead to this idea of creating a pattern using something organic that you've created, think about what your main object might be. And so let's say it's a cactus. Do a Google search for how to draw a cactus in Illustrator because there are a bajillion tutorials. Um, and it's going to help you figure out how to get the thing that you want to get. And that's like totally fine with me if you want to use a tutorial to get the shape that you want to get. But then once you learned how to do it, you've got those skills and you could create a new kind of cactus or a new kind of bird. Again, it's totally fine with me if for the project you are walking through a tutorial. Don't use the bird in that I just showed you in your pattern. Create a new bird or look up how to do something different or play until you have created the thing that you want to create by manipulating your shapes. So I'm going to do another video in a little bit here on flowers, and then the last video will be on how to create patterns. All right, go forward, have fun, and I don't know, make something cool. All right, carry on. I'll see you next time. Or you'll see me. Okay.